Ah, yes, these are indeed intense times, are they not? This is truly a good time for pondering the remarkable planetary transition you are all undergoing. Indeed, what do you make of it all? More importantly, perhaps, how do you intend to negotiate your way through this time, given all the stresses, hindrances, and obstacles that appear to be arising continually? Well, it's complicated, isn't it? Of course, the evolutionary process will surely continue its relentless march, and humans will try to make sense of it all as best they can. Many are wondering about the fate of the process at hand, their country, and perhaps the world. While humanity is fated to experience all the crumbling artifacts of a dissolving age, is all the crumbling the destiny of humanity or the planet? Of course, it is one thing to feel the pressure of all the erupting planetary events, even to feel a bit overwhelmed at times or intimidated by the magnitude of it all. However, it is quite another matter to move deeper into the grand mystery that is trying to unfold, isn't it? So what is Earth's destiny? And is her destiny different from her fate? Well, these are intended to be thought-provoking questions, and wrestling with them effectively will surely require a solid understanding of the present, as well as an amazing range of future possibilities. In times such as this, envisioning the big picture becomes rather important, particularly when the small picture seems too tiny to contain the array of experiential elements pushing the envelope, so to speak. Clearly, the forces at work in the world are indeed pushing the envelope, and perhaps in ways you are only now beginning to appreciate. While the evolutionary process has certainly been triggered by the radical paradigm shift now in process, it may now be more important than ever previously to ponder Earth's destiny as well as her fate. In truth, very few people spend much of their creative contemplative time focused on their own destiny, let alone the destiny of Earth. Yet, when a question about one's destiny does arise in consciousness, often it is treated only in a cursory manner, and very generally at that. In fact, it is very rare that anyone contemplates this question with any real spiritual depth. Often, what arises on the mental screens of many folks tends to be fixated on two compelling areas: money and power, or perhaps their acquisition. These are, of course, compelling areas for most people, and that has been true for millennia. Indeed, both these preoccupations can be seen and felt in the gyrations driving the stock markets, the relative strength of currencies, the failing of large financial institutions, and perhaps in the redefining of various nations' economies. Studying these indicators, one might think the fate of nations hang dangling in the wind, suspended perhaps by some pretty thin threads. Now, while these indicators might point to the fate of nations, do they say anything at all about their destinies? While one might recognize that the energetic forces now compressing the boundaries of world order are somehow connected with the arrival of the Aquarian Age, making sense of the journey is probably elusive at best. For all the arising complications people are experiencing, it is important to remember that this critical time is also imbued with a host of new possibilities. Indeed, given the radical shifts now occurring on Earth, it may just be time to consider her destiny as well as that of all the beings she hosts. From the perspective of the current evolutionary moment, movement into the Aquarian Age may appear to be ruled by chaos. Yet, going back in time, we will note that the beginning of the Piscean Age had its own chaotic scenario, as did the beginnings of all Earth's prior ages. During the early centuries of the current era, the Roman government, driven by greedy expansionism, usurped power in Eastern and Western Europe, Northern Africa, and the Middle East. You see, the propaganda spread by the Roman Empire then was that it was carrying out a great construction project, mainly roads, in all the areas they captured by their warring exploits. Indeed, even some of today's world leaders seem to be echoing the same old refrain, albeit more in terms of destruction than construction. Of course, some still hold that the ancient building projects of the Romans were actually a great boon to civilization. Whether partially true or not, the fact remains that heavy costs were extracted from those conquered by the Romans. Indeed, the force of their progress was quite vicious to those who bore the brunt of their empirical campaigns. Just as today, most of the people who came under Roman rule back then had their hands full just trying to manage their lives. Thus, even though the chaos and destruction they suffered may have been signaling the beginning of a new planetary paradigm, it was nonetheless disastrous for the conquered. As the age of Pisces now closes, it is interesting to note all the hot spots in the world that are now disrupted by the chaos and destruction of war. Indeed, as reflected above, some heads of states today are employing the same expansionist tactics used by the Romans back at the beginning of the age of Pisces. What's more, all of this destructive chaos affects not only Earth's physical body, but the consciousness of all sentient beings now living on the planet. While that particular fact may be obvious, another one may not be quite as obvious. You see, in the final analysis, it is the collective consciousness that ultimately creates both the planet's destiny and her fate. So, the way we will approach the topics of fate and destiny in this teaching is to see both as a kind of debt. Fate is one's debt to nature, and the force of its movement is directed toward death. Destiny, on the other hand, is one's debt to the soul, and the force of its movement always flows in the direction of life. Perhaps you have noted that when life becomes chaotic for some people, their mental preoccupations often take on a fatalistic tone. This can be quite unsettling both for the person and for others who are close to them. In addition to sometimes falling into a morbid or hopeless trance, they generally drift more toward death-affirming choices and attitudes than toward life-affirming ones. In fact, they may even appear to have given up on life and have little or no energy for either completing life's tasks or enjoying their relationships. In such cases, the death-affirming trance is probably obvious in one's general demeanor. In the end, of course, the debt each person owes to nature will be paid, and the currency it requires is usually suffering and death. Now, the ego, fearing its own demise, often attempts to keep life and death completely separate. It likes to project the notion that life and death are positioned at opposite ends of some energetic spectrum. However, there is something so unworkable in this mental stance that those who hold it may actually be somewhat separated from their own experiences. Perhaps a more useful analogy might be to consider life and death as, twins. As such, they walk arm in arm throughout one's life journey, and with the arising of any pivotal experiences, a person will opt to be led by either the life-affirming twin or the death-affirming twin. While this concept probably sounds overly simplistic, I believe it needs further scrutiny in every person's journey. You see, nature has given everyone a body, and at some undisclosed point, she will reclaim that body. Nature has loaned her precious life force to all living beings, and there will come a time when that loan comes due and payable. Both body and life force must be surrendered and returned to the source from which they came. This is simply the way the process works, and frankly, the consequences of this reality are neither good nor bad. Ideally, one will be able to return those gifts in a gracious and appreciative manner, since this is how one's debt to nature is repaid. Of course, all are fated to release the cells at some point, and as with any other human process, this one may be subject to various aberrations. Indeed, sometimes people move prematurely into their debt to fate. Should this happen, it is likely that one may have placed too little emphasis on his or her debt to destiny or the debt to the soul. You see, the soul freely gives the gifts of consciousness, spiritual awareness, and the ability to observe and experience beauty. Thus, the debt owed to the soul is to live well. This debt includes the responsibility to use well the life force one has been given and to appreciate the amazing beauty that is so abundant here on earth. What's more, this responsibility is just as imperative in difficult times as it is in less stressful times. You see, it is destiny, not fate, that allows one to continue moving toward the goal even in spite of arising hindrances and limitations. Indeed, when a person rises to this level, she or he is a constant inspiration to all who can appreciate their contribution. As it turns out, it is this capacity of soul to withstand life's storms and still endeavor on that forges one's destiny, you see? Now, likely most of you have encountered the notion that humans generally use only about 10% of their actual brain power, talent, and creative potential. And this is clearly the case in individuals who are asleep spiritually or mentally. In fact, this lackluster condition is often normalized in the psychological community. Yet, consider for a moment what might be possible if one would allow the soul to fully invest in his or her destiny. Aside from dissolving all those death-affirming choices and attitudes, a truly soul-imbued being would awaken to the possibility of being radically present in every moment. My dear friends, it is precisely this awakened state of consciousness that is needed as Earth now moves into the Aquarian Age. In fact, the age itself is requiring something, or will, of every individual consciousness making the journey. In truth, This new age is already generating a profound imperative, perhaps an ultimatum. You see, each evolving consciousness must learn to identify more with spirit than with matter. Of course, for the spiritually mature, grateful acknowledgement of the soul's gifts is simply a way of life. What's more, the debt to the soul is paid by living as if one's life truly matters. In so doing, one creates a worthy destiny. Of course, actualizing the planet's destiny requires the help of all her children. Indeed, as spiritual aspirants learn to fill each day with the grace of their destiny, Earth's destiny takes shape. So you see, at this planetary juncture, Earth truly needs the best efforts of everyone. While the collective efforts may not circumvent all the events associated with Earth and humanity's fate, they will, however, generate the destiny of both. Now, living in this way may, at times, require one to move cross-grain to social norms, since death-affirming choices and attitudes are currently flooding the conventional reality. Of course, these choices and attitudes demonstrate the collective debt owed to nature, and it may now appear that nature has decided to call in her debts. Of course, all of you have been called to bear high witness to the unfolding of Earth's spiritual evolution, and thus it is imperative to dissolve the death-affirming images and projections your mind may be tempted to entertain. You see, entering a new age, it is important to now look upon Earth with fresh eyes. I also urge all of you to cultivate fresh hearts and appreciate with fresh awareness your remarkable journey on Earth. Indeed, awaken now to a fresh sense of both your personal destiny and planetary destiny. Rather than resisting the transformative process now underway, learn to confront your mental obscurations and personal blocks. In so doing, you will be able to cut through the veils of illusion that prevent clear vision and wise action. In fact, this practice will ensure forward progress and will also open one to deep healing. Learn to be compassionate with all beings, including yourself. Give to the soul who has given so much unto you. Give to all other beings in order that they may see the presence of soul continually offering its radiance through your thoughts, words, and actions. These are the precious fruits of enlightenment. When you see what is possible and fully commit to realizing your enlightenment, you are paying the debt to your soul and creating a magnificent destiny. Know, my friends, that fate is a kind of common denominator. While the debts it extracts vary person to person, they must be paid for nature's gift of a body imbued with life force. Destiny, on the other hand, arises for those who truly show up for it. Indeed, destiny beckons those who learn never to waste the preciousness of a moment or a single breath. I want to here offer you a quote penned by Kathlyn Kingdon Moore after she reflected deeply on the Dalai Lama's admonition to recognize the precious nature of each day. Quote, "No matter how frenzied you feel, no matter how shoved and strangled by the rush of events, you are standing in a single exquisite moment. No matter how off-kilter you feel, You are standing in a place of perfectly balanced forces. Even if you feel abandoned by all that might comfort you, you are held in the embrace of what you cannot see." Close quote. Isn't that a beautiful statement? You see, if you truly want to realize your destiny, it will require a journey of faith, and that means you will need to give up the ego's demand for certainty. After all, you are living in a time of great uncertainty, and clinging to the ego's desire for certitude will only produce the inner resistance that ends in skinned knees and bruised shins along the road of life. Of course, you probably know some folks who believe they can only move forward if they are certain of the next step. If so, you may also notice that their tendency is to take few steps, often with long intervals in between. Yet, demanding certainty is somewhat like planting one's feet in the concrete shoes of fate. As the concrete hardens, the person will eventually not be able to move at all. Thus, the opportunities for transformation will simply pass by, and she or he will be held fast in the dust and ashes of a debt to nature. Let me here offer a provocative question. Should you be fortunate enough to encounter your destiny, would you recognize it? Well, to actually answer that question, perhaps a more practical definition of destiny is needed that is less vague than merely noting it is a debt to the soul. One such definition might be that destiny is a creative force that dissolves all the ego's cherished reference points, particularly those it uses to identify with phenomenal reality, or the material world. Now, I realize this definition may sound a bit more theoretical than practical. Even so, the results of encountering one's destiny are truly remarkable. Indeed, one learns to recognize the soul and identify with it rather than all things corruptible in the phenomenal realm. You see, when this soul identity is fully grown, there is no force in the cosmos that can restrict the flow of its utter radiance in and through your magnificent life. What's more, the call of destiny, unlike the call of fate, will invite you to move deeply into the profound mystery of spirit indwelling matter. Indeed, fully entering this mystery is your destiny. While destiny always flows forward, fate strongly resists forward progress. In fact, fate is now attempting to drag the planetary process backwards, and it is calling all humans who will to join in that effort. Given the worldly intensity you are experiencing today, it may even feel as if fate is demanding a kind of duel between the poles of life affirmation and death affirmation. As you can surely now observe, many institutional structures are weakening, perhaps even crumbling. Of course, as evolution continues, the old paradigm must give way to its replacement, and this is true no matter how much humans resist the inevitable. In fact, some of you are right now experiencing energetic fatigue from straining against the backwards pull of those desperately clinging to the past. Yet this clinging, no matter how frantic it may become, is to no avail, since a new paradigm is making its way to the forefront of human experience. I believe it was the French writer Marcel Proust who offered this quote: The true journey of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having fresh eyes." Close quote. Indeed, when were fresh eyes ever needed more than right now? Well, I hope this brief teaching has offered several points for pondering, and that you will, in fact, ponder them. As we close, please know that I love you, I bless you, and I give thanks for each aspirant who truly seeks to attain a blessed destiny. I thank you.